Well, based on our standards, I would say no.
And our standards are the only ones that matter.
Well, so the only standards for morality that matter are your own?
Are mine. Yeah.
But isn't that the same thing that essentially Christians use when they're trying to impose their morals on other people in society?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is.
So isn't it wrong?
No.
Really? So when Christians are protesting that gays shouldn't get married,
they are acting within their own moral system, and they are right within that. However, they are also conflicted in the sense that we have to go back to the values things, and I'm going to let Jen answer in just a second. Yeah. When we go back to what we value, the things that I value are demonstrably better for me as an individual and for our society than the things that these gay bashers value. Now, from their perspective, from their point of view, their morals are just fine. As a matter of fact, their morals are. Matter of fact, they are convinced that their morals are God-given and therefore the end-all, be-all. They've reached to an authority beyond themselves. It's not even their fault that they're immoral. It's their God's fault. But when we're talking about how I'm going to view it, I'm going to view them as immoral. And the people who agree with me are going to agree, and those who don't, won't. And how we resolve this is one of the biggest and eternal struggles of existence. When is it okay to impose your views upon somebody else? When is it okay to interfere in some other society, some other government, some other culture, some other religion? And it's been a long road, and I don't think we're anywhere near resolving all that. But one of the common answers is when their rights exceed the boundary, when their actions and their morals exceed the boundaries of themselves, because we have to share space. So my rights end where yours begin.
Well, yeah, but when the issue, I understand what you're saying, and it makes sense. The only issue I have is when you say that the people of 2,000 years were immoral based on the standards I have today.
Yeah.
It doesn't really say anything to me. All it tells me is that, well, based on my morals, like I believe that, like, you know how in Thailand they eat monkeys, and part of it is like they chop off its skull and eat the brain while it's still alive. For me, I think that's immoral.
Actually, I think that's an urban legend.
Is it? Well, let's say for the sake of argument, it's true.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
but for the sake of argument, let's say it happened, and you think they're immoral. Fine, I'd agree.
Yeah, but the point is, when I say they're immoral for this, that doesn't really say anything other than my morals are different from theirs.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well.
Do you not think that your morals are better? Why are you hanging on to them if you don't think they're better?
I believe that based on the circumstances of my society, my culture, they're better. I believe that where I live...
Do you think it was ever right to own another human being as property and to be allowed to beat them? Do you think that was ever right?
I believe that in the circumstances of back then, like the only reason America was able to prosper was because we held on to slavery for so long.
I didn't ask that. I didn't ask if it was beneficial. I'll tell you right now, slavery is enormously beneficial to the slave masters. Hey, guess what? If I'm the dictator, a dictatorship's an enormously beneficial thing. Is it right?
Well, that's the thing when you're talking about history like that. I mean, was massacring like the 100 million so Indians in America, right? Well, no, we would say it's wrong, but if we didn't do that, history wouldn't turn out the way it did.
Oh my gosh! Okay, go ahead, Jen.
Yeah. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about, you're going back to Christian morality and these guys putting their own morality out there, asserting it as better than secular morality. So I want to talk a little bit about why that's problematic from my perspective. Okay. One of the things that we know about how people develop the ability to make these moral judgments is that it's a process. And it's a process that people go through starting when they're very young, and it continues throughout their whole life. Okay? And the ability to move from one stage of morality to the next is dependent on having your morality at that stage that you're in challenged by something. So as children move through the various stages of morality, which incidentally coincides with their brain development and other cognitive milestones, what we see is that they acquire the ability to make better moral judgments. So when you're talking about things evolve, they don't actually evolve in that respect. We just get better because we practice this more. So moral judgment is very much about practicing how you do this. The problem with these fundamentalists who want to use the Bible as their ultimate standard of morality is that they're basing it on a Bronze Age text. And if you look at, there's a guy named Lawrence Kohlberg who did some research on moral development. He developed 6 stages of morality, or of moral development. Okay? If you look that up and you go through those 6 stages of morality, what you find is that most primitive cultures stall out at about, stage 3 or so. There are 6 stages. They only get to about stage 3, if that. Most of them stall out at about stage 2. And that's because there's very little in those primitive cultures to challenge stage 2 or stage 3 morality. So there's no possibility for them to develop beyond that. So why would we want to base our present-day morality on a culture that couldn't get past stage 2 or 3? I mean, that's the problem with theistic morality.
I agree with you that it doesn't make sense to base morals today on a society that existed 2,000 years ago.
And that's why I can claim that my morality is superior to theirs, because I believe that I am beyond stage 3.
Well, what do you believe where do you think you get your morality? I said that we get our morality from our society. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
I mean, yes and no.
Okay. There's an objective neurological and psychological basis for morality. Humans are hardwired to develop moral judgment because we are a social species.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true. Part of it is evolution. People that have the evolutionary need to go and punch people in the face all the time didn't reproduce as much, and those violent, aggressive genes didn't get passed on.
Well, no, I mean, we could get into a whole discussion about that, but there's actually chemicals, neurotransmitters, that are responsible for a lot of this behavior. But all that aside, we're hardwired to work these things out, to not be in constant conflict with each other. Yeah. So that's one thing. But then we do have, it's partly culture, it's partly the way you're raised, and then it's practice.
So environmental. So let's say from parents, society, environment, let's just say you get some of your, if not most, of your morals from that setting, correct?
I would say, and I have a slightly different take on this. I don't want to overplay or underplay societal aspects or evolutionary aspects, and I realize they play into what I value. But with regard to my morals in particular, what my moral views are on issues are the result of my actually sitting down and thinking about the issue and analyzing outcomes and possibilities until I determine what I think the most beneficial action would be. When I didn't get, for example, I'm on the subject of abortion, which some people consider to be a moral issue. I was a pro-life individual when I was a Christian, and when I stopped being a Christian, I didn't just immediately become a pro-choice individual. And actually, I probably became pro-choice before I abandoned my Christian beliefs. But what happened was I began to consider what my position was based on what I valued and how we would have to go about making decisions. And the conclusion that I came to tentatively is that I'm pretty much okay with the way laws on abortion are right now. That while a 2-day fertilized egg is not anything that I'm going to lose any sleep over if it's removed, and a 1-week or 2-week or 3-week, there does come some point at which the fetus is viable on its own, and at which point I have a moral objection to killing it. It happens around the time of brain development for me, which happens to coincide with the second, third trimester cutoff line where we put it.
Yeah.
And while I recognize that there's no easy, hard, fast, set-in-stone answer on any of this, I'm pretty much okay with it, and I can set that issue aside largely because I'm never going to have one. But it's still something that I consider because there are people I care about who might have to evaluate that decision and giving them the information that led me to a decision. But to say that my moral value of that question is simply the product of society or teaching from parents or whatever really oversimplifies and belittles the work that went into actually coming up with this. Not in a simple sense, because I think there was a lot of work involved in everybody getting from stage 2 and 3 Bronze Age ideas up to the stage 5, stage 6 ideas that we have now.